have ourselves a little introduction to CSS. I feel like the instructor session in the morning was probably pretty good actual introduction to CSS. Basically just talking about how if HTML is the bones of your website, then CSS is the skin, the clothes, the dressing for how your website's going to look. And one thing that I really wanted to focus on, because this is something that I struggled with a lot starting out with web development, web design, is understanding like how it actually works. Like when you're looking at maybe some reference, maybe a mock, what is it that you're actually building? And I think that the secret to CSS and a web page is that it's all just boxes. And if you recognize this, this is kind of like on, if you open up DevTools, you can kind of see what I mean. So first, I want to start out with one of my favorite little tricks, which is where someone just gives me a website. Yeah, just a website that's, has maybe a lot of content on it. What's a good example? Amazon.com. Okay. Oh, wait. That's the one other thing I needed to pull up, huh? Is Chromium. Let's do that. And put in its own tab. Okay. So you can see there's like a lot of stuff on here, and you might be thinking like, how would you even kind of like begin to put together a website like this? Like, how does this relate to that, to that, to that? And one of my favorite things is to open up just DevTools, your inspect. If you go to something like this, sure, it's Control-Shift-C, and there's a few different commands. Yeah, there's a few different commands to open up. Mm-hmm. Or you can just go to inspect. This is Linux, but you can just go to however you want to get there. You can get to your DevTools, and what you want to find is your styles here. And you want to, right here, there's this button, New Style Rule. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new rule that applies to everything on the page. So I'm going to use the star selector, and I just want to add an outline, and I'm going to give it a 1 pixel, ooh, not to capitalize, 1 pixel solid red. And now everything on the page, every single HTML element has a red outline on it, and that's really showing how everything is a box. Like this is a box, this is a box. This is like 100 boxes nested in 100 other boxes. And this is really useful too if you're trying to figure out like how they structured something. You might see that, oh, well, this is actually just being put inside of this box, and this is being put inside of this box. I love this trick. It's so easy. Here, actually, let me go back to my presentation. So right here, you can use Control-Shift-C. Again, you can go into inspect however you want. I use Control-Shift-C here because on Chrome, that opens you right into the CSS properties. You add the new style rule, this little plus button right here, and you add the new style rule, create a 1 pixel outline on all the elements with the star selector. And it's just going to let you choose your selector, start out with a star. Super easy, super useful. I love to do it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I just wanted to like start out with that just to show kind of an example. But the main thing that I wanted to go with today was a little activity where we're going to kind of build a rough outline of a website. Basically, this will be our mock that we will be building together. And so I'm wondering if someone can come up and maybe help me put on a few of these. Yeah, come on. I mean, multiple people can come help if they want. Okay. So let's start out with a div, either the blue or the purple. What should we start out with? Just like where we're gonna put one on the pink or the green. Which one do you want to start with? It doesn't really matter. Okay. Can grab one of those. And yeah, use one of those magnets and just put it somewhere where it makes sense. All right, awesome. You want to help put one on too? Sure. All right, now let's add another element. Or let's actually add the purple div too. I'm not sure if it'll fit into the pink, so it might have to go into the green. And then, yeah, those are little magnets. All right, so now we could add maybe a p tag. I think it might only fit really there. But we could also put in, what do you think, either an A tag or a button? Yeah. Oh, after our, okay. It could go right inside of it. Awesome. Yeah, what about like a button? Awesome. All right. I think that's probably a good place to start out with. Yep. All right. What do y'all think? Should we build this out? Or maybe let's Oh no, I didn't think to make it H1. I should have done that. Ooh, yeah, sure. Yeah. All right, cool. Maybe we should put one other thing inside the other div so it's not empty. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, we have an image. Or maybe instead of that button, we could put the image. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well. All right. Yeah. Well, how's that? Does that seem like a good place to start out with? All right. Let's get building. Okay. Hopefully this isn't an absolute act of hubris. We're going to put this all together as quickly as possible. So the first thing we want to do is I have this index here. As you can see, this is going to correlate with, where is it? Oh, this page doesn't like my shortcuts. Right here. As you can see, we have the pink and the green. I've already set this up beforehand. And we're just going to put in all those elements. And right now, we're just going to focus on the HTML. And so if we have our pink wrapper div, then what do we have inside of that? What are the first two elements? We have the two blue divs. So we have this blue div. We have this blue div. And what is inside? We have that image tag. And we're gonna, by default, when I'm prototyping a web page, I usually like to put the source as just a pound key. That'll just go to the top of the page. So if you don't know, if you're just like prototyping a web page and you're not sure on what your sources are going to be yet, just use this pound sign. Cool image will be our alt text. And let's see, for this other... Oh, okay. I thought that my screen wasn't working. And this one will have a button with a... What is it? It's the red class. And we'll have our yellow link. And that will also just go to something, to something nondescript. Okay, let's look at our green. We have our purple div. So dot purple, give us that. And that has a P tag with an A tag. So P with orange. This will make sense in just a sec, I promise. A dot yellow. Okay, how is that looking? All right, so as you can see, it looks kind of bad. And this is just our default HTML. And oops, oh, I did not want to do that. Let's put it back up here. The main thing that we're dealing with on this web page is that, of course, nothing is styled, but I don't think that that's quite true, because obviously everything still has some stuff going on. There's still like what is this little gap right here? What is this tiny button? Oops. Oh no, don't go to Facebook, please. And what I wanted to show, if I can get back to that, is the what? Right now it's linked to just we can link it to something specific later if we want, but right now it's just linked to a hashtag, which the hashtag is just going to be the top of your page, basically. And it's just kind of a placeholder is how most people will use it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how HTML displays. And that's to say that almost every HTML element wants to be as small as possible. So as you can see on... This is so annoying. As you can see on here, like, all these things are like really tiny. They're all like really scrunched up. The one thing... This is our tiny button. Yeah, it is like 12 pixels by 6 pixels. The one thing that can affect an element's size, or to make it bigger rather, is to put something bigger inside of it, or to tell it to be bigger with CSS. And so let me see here. I can show off real quick that like all the divs on your page are gonna look something like this. They're gonna be like super tiny little flat nothings, and then as soon as you put something in, bam, they have some dimension, they have some height, and you might think that that's actually a little bit different because it has all this width, and that's because there's actually all these hidden default CSS settings, kind of like our button. Like our button actually has some hidden defaults where it's like it's never going to be 0 by 0 unless you specify it to be that. If I go back here, these are some examples. if you set these properties in your CSS, it will do absolutely nothing because these are already the defaults that these settings have. So your div will always be display block. It'll have a width of 100% and a height of auto. Your P is also block, and a block display is just something that you can put things underneath and above but not next to, whereas inline you can put stuff next to. So obviously that makes sense with like A tags. You want your A tags to go in the middle of your text. You don't want, you know, your HTML to be going along, hit an A tag, and then suddenly everything has to drop below the A tag. It's inline, so everything along with the A tag is in line with the A tag. And you might often see if you want to like restyle your A tag, because it's like blue and it's underlined and it's kind of ugly. So people will say like text decoration none or color, you know, whatever. But by default, these are those values that it will usually have. Not always, but on most browsers, it's blue and underline. Same with the button. It'll have these tiny little details. I think that it might actually be this border that's actually giving its tiny size. I'm not totally sure. But it has this light gray kind of ugly setting. Basically, your web page, I'm sure you've all seen like a web page without the CSS applied when you've like loaded it in and the CSS just didn't load or something. Yeah, it's just like, in fact, I wanted to show that as well because I have my own. Here's my my portfolio website that I made recently. And it's like, oh yeah, pretty nice, but without the fancy little CSS, it's going to look, where is that? Oh, here we go. Jeez. Like that. I did not mean to wear the exact same shirt and outfit as my portfolio. But yeah, everything just kind of falls apart. But yeah, this is just vanilla HTML, but you'll notice like some things are still styled. Like my H2 tags still are bigger than other text because they have a default font size that's going to be larger than your P tags. And your links are all going to be blue or purple. And, you know, like your list tags will have this little bullet next to it. You know, just a lot of things like that. Here's a button. You know, that's what that'll look like by default. But then if I go and turn that back on, there we go. And that's what it is supposed to look like. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can talk about that later, but yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. Let's go back to our example with the board. And it looks really ugly because we don't have anything in it and everything is just super tiny and nondescript. I can never use the shortcuts to get out of that page for some reason. Where do I want to go? I want to go right here. So what can we put in, say, like our P tags that would give it some body, some height? Just like what's on most web pages. Just like some text, right? And something that a lot of people might do when they're making just a mock-up is to use just lorem ipsum. And there's this handy little plugin for my editor right here where I can just type lorem. It'll add some lorem ipsum for me. I can maybe, I don't know, add some of this to can take it out of here and put it in my A tag. So what would that look like? So now there's some text in here, and you can see the orange is actually showing up. The P tag, you can actually see the P tag because there's something that is giving it body. It had no height before because nothing was inside of it. Now something is inside of it, so it has a height, and that height is determined by the font, the text that is inside of it. If I were to really go crazy and add, like, I don't know, let's add in a lot more text, maybe like lorem 150 or something, then that should, yeah, add like a lot more body. The what? Yeah. And you can see if I click that, it doesn't do anything, but it still looks like a link. Yeah, but I can't scroll down. So let's see. Oops. Dang it. I always go to this page and it freezes up on me. But, so that's one way to add like some body to your page. But you might also want to add just some width and height. You might just need to specify that this element needs to be so big, and that's where width and height comes in, or max width and max height. It's a little bit more flexible if you want to use max width, max height. That way, say you have, actually, I think I used this, where is it? I used this same example on my portfolio again. Where my, if I can, oh yeah, here we go. So my, or maybe I didn't. Sorry, just a second. Yes, so I have a max width for all of my thumbnail images here. So they will never become larger than this size, no matter what I do to them. And that's nice because then they can scale down, but they won't scale up too big, which is, you know, just things to keep in mind when you're designing your web page. Ooh. So let's see. What could we, was there anything I missed on my page here? Oh yeah, the one danger to defining your width and height like very explicitly, especially the vanilla width and height, is that you will sometimes end up in situations where something will stick out. Like in that example I just showed, if I were just to define those images as always be 300 pixels wide, then maybe sometimes I could be scaling down my window and my picture would just be sticking right out the side. You get into the situation, huh? The side of like whatever it's containing. Yeah, so like if it's surrounding div, it gets to the point where it's only, because of the way I've scaled the window, it's, you know, it's a flexible HTML element and it's going to scale down to maybe 250 pixels. But my image, it says always be 300 pixels. So it's just going to stick right out the side. You get stuff like, of course, CSS is awesome. CSS is my passion. And one other thing, as I'm sure that you all were just learning, is talking about grid and flexbox. And the way I like to think of it is grid is for grids and flexbox for the rest. So flexbox I'm using probably like 80% of the time. It's kind of just like your go-to. Grid is very useful sometimes, especially for, I think it's also really useful for like certain column layouts and just like when you want a little bit more rigid stability to your layout. And then Flexbox is a little bit more loosey-goosey. And of course, I think that you all have Flexbox Froggy as like an assignment, right? But I mean, of course, it's just like a very useful resource in itself. And the equivalent is just CSS Garden. It's very similar looking. You're going to get basically the same experience where you just kind of like learn the basics. Nice little CSS learning games. I really like these. Before that, let's how much time do we have? 20 minutes? Okay. Let's see how much of of our page that we can kind of format a little bit more. Where does what? Lorem ipsum? It's, I think, mostly associated with like graphic design. It's just like a totally invented Latin language where it's just a placeholder. I don't know if there's like a de facto like standard lorem ipsum. Like it usually always starts out with lorem ipsum, sit, amit, all that stuff. But it's useful so that you can see what some pretty realistic looking text would look like on your website without. Yeah, it's like a preview. But it's also still like different enough so that in most cases you won't end up looking at your website and think like, oh, well, this is actually ready for production. You'd be like, oh, that still has lorem ipsum on it. That's the advantage and disadvantage. But yeah, let's try to maybe like put some of these together a little bit. This is kind of like what Nicole was showing earlier with the boxes. Let's see how well that might go. I don't think I need this window anymore, so I'm just going to close it. So we have this. The HTML, I probably don't need quite so much of this lorem ipsum. I'm going to delete some of it. How much? Oh, that did not make a dent. Let's delete a whole bunch of this. Okay, so that might be better. How much of that green div, like what percentage of that div would you say the purple div is taking up? 75%? Okay. Let's try going into our styles. And basically all I've done for this this exercise is to just make a bunch of divs. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Is just make a bunch of divs with classes that are named each color, so that it could correspond to the board. So with our purple div, it has a width of 75% of its container. Did that do anything? Well, it didn't, because the orange is also taking up the entire thing right now. So what could we do with that? We could, yeah, it's taking up like 30% height-wise of the purple. So maybe we could say since we have, I guess that's the only orange, I still think it's probably better usually to select the specific one that you're looking for. In this case, we would want the orange element that's inside the purple element, and that has, yes, and this will actually select every single orange element that's inside of a purple element. So right. Yeah, if we had an orange one just somehow in the blue, then it would not be. It would also, like with this syntax, not to get too in the weeds, but with this syntax, this would also say if we had a blue inside of a purple, inside that blue we had the orange, it would also still, with this, it would still select that orange. It would only select the orange if it's the first child, if we use something like this syntax. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. So that has a what? I believe so. Yeah. I think that works. What did we say? That was like 30% the height of the purple? Does that work? Well, it's always going to take up that much. Maybe we need to specify the height of the purple as well. The what? We can use negative values, but I think in this case, our limiting factor is that our purple div is not tall enough to contain our orange. Here, let me try this real quick and see how tall do you think that purple is inside the green? Yeah. Like what percentage? Also 60%? Oh. Maybe let me see. VH. Maybe it needs to be a min height. Does that make a difference? Oh, wait. No? I'm honestly not sure why that one is not. Did I not? I have this purple div. Let me try something real quick. Sometimes with... Let me try something real quick. This probably... Oh, yeah, that's really weird. Huh. Did I set the wrapper height to 50, half the screen height? Huh. Yeah, sorry about this. This was working earlier. This is the danger of trying to do a live code. Yeah. Let's see. So if the orange is going to be taking up 30% of the purple, but it's going to be taking up more than that. Maybe it's weird that it's this. I was having trouble with this not updating earlier. Let's just look at it. Let's inspect it. Does it have a height on here? Ah, see? It's not even updating its height on here, which is really strange. This was the same error I was having earlier, and this might be... Is this due to my server? Huh. I don't know, y'all. I'm not sure why it's not updating on here. That's what I just tried. I tried setting it. Yeah, I did like 600 pixels. Yeah, see? So if I do... See? And it's... Okay, I'm really sorry about that. Something is going wrong with my server here. It's not connecting to my code editor. I mean, maybe we can just kind of code it. No, I do not. Huh? Yeah, it's the Python 3 HTTP server. I don't have VS Code. I'm sorry. Okay, but what we can do is just kind of code stuff in the browser. So this orange takes up... It's also not like right at the top of the purple. It's more like in the middle. I think it actually takes up more than 60%. Maybe like you were saying 75. Yeah, that looks better. Mm-hmm. Okay, and how might we get it? Because the purple isn't quite on... It's not touching the top of the green either. It's like in the middle. So how would we do that? Yeah, it's also not touching the left. So, yeah, we could do like margin or padding. Oh, there we go. Yeah, maybe some margin. Let's see. What does it start with? Margin. So if we did like 20 pixels, okay. And then what would that be? Auto? That's not what we want. Or is it? Why is that not centering? That's true. Margin. Let's see. You are so right, though. Margin left. 20 pixels. Margin right. Maybe like 200 pixels. I don't know. I mean, we don't have to go the entire way with this, but just like an idea of like how you can kind of position things on your web page. The main thing that I wanted to get across with this was just how you can look at a bunch of boxes and, well, first of all, you can see how a web page, a web design is a bunch of boxes, and then kind of interpolate that into your HTML and then start styling it from there. Because obviously divs are going to be boxes by default, and if you can look at your web page, usually it helps. I don't, if some people might know how to just like whip up a web page from scratch, but for instance, let me pull this up as well. So this was my portfolio again. If I were to go to, let me get out of here, back to files. Open, please. So this is the web page I designed first. So all these things, this is just like a, you know, I can just drag these around. This is not like... Exactly. And so that was really useful because then I can imagine all these elements as boxes, and I can start saying, okay, well, this is going to be an H1. This is going to be a P tag. This is going to be an H2. And I can start layering in those elements inside my HTML, and I can start styling it. And it helps. This program is called Figma. It's really designed for this specific use case. And it'll give you stuff like your typography, You can use, where is it? You can use this dev mode and like actually measure how far things are on your screen. So I know that, it's called Figma. Yeah, look into it. It requires a subscription, but you get it for free if you're a student, and being an Atlas student counts. So you can like measure the distances between things. And so, like for here, I might say, my margin bottom on my About Me section would be like 80 pixels, because I can look at this and see that's about how big it needs to be based on my design. And in the professional world, you might get a mock like this and you might need to follow it to the letter. And especially if they give you a Figma, you can open it up, look at these measurements and implement it exactly as they have it. The what? Yeah, thanks. But that's about all I have. Does anyone else have any questions? Yes. Okay, well, there's a few ways to center something. I'd say that some common use cases for centering like a div would be to put it inside of another div, or if it's inside of another element, is to have that element have a display of flex, and then use a justify content of center. If you want it centered in the x-axis, if you want it centered in the y-axis, you can use align items center. Sometimes you can also use margin auto, and that will just automatically put the margin that you need on any side that you specify. If you want to center a grid, what do you mean by that? So basically, that grid of shapes, I would encase that grid inside of another element, another box. I would draw a box. Like if I'm having trouble like figuring out how to structure something, I just draw another box. That's really all it is. So like earlier on that example with where was it? The New York Times one, like you might have like a bunch of overlapping boxes because it just makes it easier to think of, like you could try and center each of these items individually, or you could say, hey, this whole nav bar, just center the nav bar, because that's one element now that includes all these nav items.
So what you're saying is if you want something to be in a certain relationship, you're going to try to put two items in box.
Yeah. Yeah. In pretty much every case, your box is just going to be another div. Yeah. Most things go in a div. So the difference, if you want to use a span, that would be for inline elements. And we sort of, hopefully that made sense earlier, talking about inline versus. So if you used a div, by default, it will be a block level element. And like I was saying earlier with the A tag, if an A tag was a block element, you would have your text going along, bam, like all the text after that would just like be cut off, because it's like, oh, this is a block element. I need to, like, I can't be next to you. You're a block. I can't be next to a block. I can't be in line with a block. I can only be in line with other inline elements. So that's why you would want to use a span. I feel like spans, the way I use spans most often is for stuff like special text. So like if I were, for instance, coding up this title, I might put a span around that. And I would say that I want to be oblique or, italic.
And you would define that span yourself.
exactly. All right. Any last lingering questions? All right. Thank you so much. The what?